Hi, this is MXUX. I just wanted to put this video out on 3/21/22, a status on Ride and Lordstown Motors. Just to bring everybody up to date, there's been some recent information out on the status of Ride. Anyway, let me just go through this and I think this is an update everybody's worth listening to. So this is 3/21/22, and we're talking about Ride, Lordstown Motors, and FOXCONN and their pending joint venture agreement. Now, currently, this is a joint venture agreement with FOXCONN to produce vehicles and use those fees for Lordstown to engineer and design vehicles, and use those fees to finance the contract manufacturing of the Lordstown Endurance. There is no formal announcement up or down. Okay, there is no news on this. There is a black box which is called Lordstown Motors. Nothing is coming out of it other than what we heard in the earnings call. I just want to mention that this has all been laid out before, okay? This is not new, this whole status, the terms of this agreement. In the past, I've mentioned that it is the terms of a unsecured loan or unsecured purchase from the board of FOXCONN. But in any case, let's just forget about my insights into this. Let's just talk about what's happened. So on the CEO call, you can see my last video. I go over very carefully what CEO Dan said. And at the end of the video, I play a clip from the call, and what Dan said, you'll hear from me on April 30th, if not sooner. Okay, so what do we have from Dan? We have, if not sooner. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? Does it mean, I don't know. You interpret that. Also from CEO Dan, we have a stock purchase. Okay? And if not sooner is from the call. That's really the only thing I can see about any kind of, telegraphing of what's going to happen, along with the stock purchase. Both the CEO of FOXCONN and Lordstown Motors say that the Endurance is going into production this year. So this is what we know. On CFIUS. Now, CFIUS is an acronym that stands for something. It's a collection of U.S. government agencies that approve all major business purchases, basically in the United States, to make sure they align with, the interests of the United States. If it's not approved by CFIUS, this can be canceled. This can cancel the JV deal. So CFIUS is important as well. And I initially thought that the somewhat draconian terms of this non-agreement for their joint venture was not directed at Lordstown, but rather at CFIUS as a lever to make sure that they approve this. Okay, so in other words, if you don't approve this, CFIUS, you're going to ruin this company. So you better approve it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. I may or may not be right about that. The application is in with CFIUS, I believe. There's no information up or down from CFIUS. I expect their approval, especially with the macro events. FOXCONN is a Taiwan-based company, or Saipan, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm not political here. Um, the U.S. is supporting Taiwan, and you would expect them to support, especially with the macro events going on right now, Taiwan and a Taiwan-based business. All right, now let's move on to the competition for this joint venture with Lordstown. The Ford Pro is the only competitor. Okay, uh, the Silverado isn't going to be out for 2 years probably. The Cybertruck, some fleets might buy. I'm sure some rental fleets might buy it, but as far as any working fleets, they're not going to buy it. I think the Ford Pro is the only truck that's really a competitor for the Lordstown and Lawrence Endurance. Just today or recently, they announced an EPA rating of 69 miles per gallon for the Ford Pro. The last statement was 75 miles per gallon for the Endurance, so that would give it a 6 mile per gallon advantage, which over a fleet of vehicles is a lot. But that was the old, we do not have new specs. There have been changes, I believe, with the Endurance. I'm going to go over that in a minute. Ford claims they'll be profitable with this Ford Pro at 40K. Not likely, in my opinion. I think there's going to be price changes, and there may be fleet dealer markups involved as well. So I don't think the pricing on this is settled. They claim production is starting on the Ford Pro, and they're putting it at the front of the line supposedly, but they can't even get ICE 150s out the door right now. So as far as the competition, in my opinion, the price and availability of the competing model, which is the Ford Pro, is questionable. Announcements have been made. Ford has been known to change, and there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of things against this happening on the timetable Ford announces. That's my analysis of the competition. And I do believe the Ford Pro is the only competition for a BEV fleet pickup truck. Now let's talk about the Endurance. This is the product we're talking about. The flagship first version of the first product for Lordstown Motors. That's the subject of this whole effort between these two companies. The Endurance is about on schedule, and I think it should meet the start of production. Hightower has said it's going to do it, and he has done many programs like this. I have no reason to doubt him. I think the Endurance is a superior EV fleet product, and I'll just give you two reasons. Solid rear axle for towing purposes. The Ford F-150 does not have this. They have all kind of different things they're saying they're going to improve towing, but you got to have a solid rear axle. And also the hub motors. You can change a hub motor in 5 minutes with regular hand tools. Replace the motor. The drivetrain of the Ford Pro has got thousands of parts. And as you recall, they have a scale in the back because I believe the independent rear suspension is fragile, and if it's overloaded, the truck, I think that's going to void the warranty on the Ford Pro, and I think fleet managers are going to look at that, and that's another reason the Endurance is a better truck. I believe the Endurance, the stated production numbers of the Endurance could be higher. I think, number one, they're cash constrained. I think if they had more CapEx, OpEx to throw at the production, I think they could increase those numbers. I think they personally have the capacity there at the plant to do so. And also supply line problems. These chips that are in the brake systems and so forth are a problem and so forth. Once these two problems are solved, and they might both be solved by FOXCONN, I think the production could be higher. I think they're stating production with what's currently available, but I think the production could be higher. And I think with the tax credit, definitely a $7,000 tax credit, it puts the Endurance where, in the mid to high 50s, I think it's definitely a very competitive product. And I just want to put this out here, and this is pure speculation. This is kind of in response to a comment I got in a past video. I'm not. You can look at my past videos and figure out which one. But I am of the. I don't know. They're not stating the battery type of the Endurance, the 2023 model they call it. They have stated the range at 200 miles, not the previous 250. The They may be sandbagging because of the SEC and DOJ, but let's just take them at their word. They say 200, they mean 200. I think that's probably enough for fleets. But this whole thing, if you add up the reduction in mileage for the battery, the reduction in payload capacity of 500 or 800 pounds or so, the increase in towing capacity to 4 tons, the reduction of the size of the frunk. I don't know. This is pure speculation on my part. Could they be contemplating, or are they going to switch to a lithium, to a LFP, lithium iron phosphate battery? Okay. All these things, if you put them all together, Sherlock Holmes would say, oh, of course, it's an LFP battery. If they do this, and I'm not saying they are, and I'm not saying they will, but if they do it, it's going to reduce the range of the Endurance, but it's going to be good news because it's going to reduce the bill of materials cost. Okay. And it's going to get a jump on all the other truck manufacturers who have committed to lithium ion batteries. This could possibly be it. For fleets, the life of the lithium iron battery is higher than a lithium ion battery. And I believe they have more power, more torque as well. But I think that the main emphasis of this is it would, if this were the case, I am speculating. I have no news on this. This is not confirmed. It would take the Endurance battery supply out of the nickel supply chain too. So now let's just move on. The macro events around all of this. Again, I just mentioned nickel price instability. I mean, this is going to affect everybody. Tesla is already on the ball, as they always are, eliminating as much nickel as they can from their batteries. Again, I suspect that maybe, LMC is doing the same. Anyway, this is on the entire EV spectrum here, and it's going to affect the prices of all the other pickups. And the Fords have big batteries, a lot of nickel. Okay, I think the gasoline price and oil is going to go to $200 a barrel. $200 a barrel. I think some world events are going to limit certain supplies of oil to parts of the world. And I do believe, I think that's a doubling of the price of oil about. So we're at about $6 a gallon here. So if they double everything, that's $12 a gallon. That's going to be a big force towards BEV adoption. Okay. And in any case, the BEV fleet, rental, and retail market demand is strong. Okay? You see the numbers Ford's throwing out. And, Steve Burns threw out these numbers, and they were the first BEV, and they're basically the same numbers. And, they crucified him for it. But you can see he was right about the demand. Okay? At that time, you got to understand, when Steve Burns was announcing that, there were no BEV pickup trucks. Okay, now everybody's taking these numbers for granted. Anyway, I don't get off on that. And also, in the term of macro events, the Lordstown Motors and FOXCONN at Lordstown being a U.S. based manufacturer is a plus versus being in Europe or in the EU and so forth. So the macro events are, I would say, positive. Now, one of the topics that was brought up was excessive executive compensation at Lordstown. I'm going to try to address this. I have no inside information on this. I'm sure the DOJ and the SEC is investigating this. There have been some claims of insider trading. I'm sure that, when the evidence is produced, that maybe there was some limited insider trading. I don't know. But, some implications have been stated that there's an internal cabal that's inflating the executive compensation at Lordstown. And this could be true. The board and the executives, they could be getting together and just, passing out all the cash. This is a sinking ship. Let's loot it as much as we can. All right. This is basically the statement of some other people. That might be true. I have no information either way on that. I mean, it's conjecture or deduction, but that's the only evidence of that I see. I just wanted to mention, there are procedures in place for executive compensation. They don't just hand it out. There are procedures. There is a compensation committee that's formed on the board, and they have outside compensation consultants usually involved in this. This is a very rigorous kind of thing that goes on. Okay, there's a lot of companies that just do this. Okay, and there is also a compensation committee. Okay, so it's not like they're just saying, all right, I'll give you this, you can take this, we'll do this, you know what I mean? There are procedures, there are benchmarks, there are conventions for this type of thing. You got to realize Lordstown Motors is a publicly traded NASDAQ company. And it may be in a turnaround, but it still is a publicly traded company and a manufacturing company that's, this is not a corner grocery store, okay? So the market value of certain experience and skill levels costs more money. Now, if you want to get a New York money guy, a wheeler dealer, like DJ Dan, CEO Dan, and you need his skills, especially to pull off this FOXCONN negotiation. I mean, Steve Burns was a great entrepreneur. Would he have been the right person to pull off this negotiation? No, he would not. Is DJ Dan the best candidate for this? I don't know. Maybe not the best, but I think he's way up there. Okay? And he is a good executive placement at this time, at this company, to do this task. Okay? And he has brought in a top-notch executive staff as well. Now, all these guys have certain experience and skill levels, and all these guys are basically involved in this joint venture negotiation. The CFO definitely involved. Hightower, head of production, definitely involved. DJ Dan, definitely involved. Okay, and they mentioned the interim CEO. Now she's got a large compensation as well, and she was paid well. But you remember that this was announced after her tenure. She was likely involved in the early stages of this deal. Okay, so she is also involved. So these are some high level players doing a high level job for this company, and and they are going to demand more money, and it's going to require more money to get people with these skill levels and this experience, and you got to pay them. And there's also a risk premium added for this because the SEC and DOJ are investigating the company. You are putting your career on the line, but you're also risking criminal prosecution if you make a misstep. Okay, this also comes into play. So this is kind of a dangerous quotes executive role. All these roles. This is way out on the risk profile. Okay, and you know how do you get people to do a dangerous job, a risky job? These guys that go in these high pressure suits and go down thousands of feet and weld the oil rig pipes that make $10,000 an hour. How do you get them to do that? You pay them $10,000 an hour. You compensate them for the risk. Anyway, that's my opinion. This is way out on the risk profile. And this is a good team from what I know. And I have not done a lot of in-depth, but I have reviewed the backgrounds of these individuals, and I do think all of them, based on experience, either within Lordstown or without, and their level of past operations, these are the kind of players you need in there to do this deal. Okay, this is my opinion. And again, there's a risk premium also on top of that for the SEC and the DOJ. Now there was some hay made about a lack of insider buying. Well, not everybody's risk profile is the same. They do have existing share awards, most of them, unless they've sold out. I really don't know the status. Most of the people that aren't buying are in the capitulation stage of the old Lordstown Motors. These guys, DJ Dan is buying because he's in the turnaround phase. So you really got two different companies here, two different mindsets. I don't know. That's the best way I can explain that. Now, on the YA agreement, Yorkville Advisors, there's been some hay made about short selling. I do believe, and I did look very closely at that agreement, and I do believe there is very specific language in that agreement that prohibits short selling or providing shares to individuals who are going to short them. And also, the short percentage of shares short in Lordstown Motors in ride stock has dropped. Recently, I was actually going to do a video on that, but this took priority. So, I mean, don't hold me to that. Do your own research, but I seem to recall that being the case. Okay, so much for the short selling and insider buying, and the compensation. Is there internal cabal? Carpetbaggers taking all the money out of the company? Maybe. I don't know. You can look at it. There's another way to look at it. In my opinion, this is what's going on. Anyway, not the carpetbagging, but this. Yeah, can I help you? Who is it? I'm bit. God damn it. Anyway, the short selling percentage of shares is down. I don't know that that's relevant to the yaw. I do believe it was prohibited by the yaw agreement. Let me just go on. Now, those are all the background information. Now I'm going to just go over what's going to happen if the agreement is not reached with FOXCONN. That's the worst possible outcome. There's catastrophic losses for all parties involved, including the shareholders, and including FOXCONN, and including FOXCONN is going to likely lose their stock investment and everything else in Lordstown and all the monies they've invested. They've done massive improvements to that plant. You can see the shipping containers and the stuff that's going in there. I suspect that they are building out that plant. And there's all kind of, so everybody's going to lose. Stockholders, Lordstown, FOXCONN, everybody. It would likely damage the FOXCONN brand. Because it's going to be, if it does fail, it's going to fail because of bad faith negotiations. That's, I believe, would be the claim. And I think future corporate clients of FOXCONN's contract manufacturing are going to think twice about working with a company that negotiates in bad faith. And I think this could do irreparable damage to their brand. There also could be a social media revolt against FOXCONN in general, preying on an American company and so forth. This shouldn't be discounted, okay? I think if the agreement is not reached with FOXCONN, I think LMC would immediately file a lawsuit. Immediately. The endurance start of production would be halted because it would come under the aegis of the lawsuit. I think that Lordstown Motors would claim bad faith negotiations. And I think I'm not a lawyer. I've done a little research on this. I think they could win because the only reason this isn't going to work is because of bad faith negotiations. And other people have been talking about this negotiation, and they're saying, well, that this is just a con job by FOXCONN to take control of the company, and they're going to stall, and that's bad faith, okay? So immediately there's going to be a lawsuit filed on that, and that's going to halt everything. And that's going to halt everything at Lordstown. And that's going to halt the Fisker pear production. I'm just saying this. It certainly is going to impede it. Okay, so this shouldn't be discounted. But if a lawsuit, I think they could, in my opinion, okay. But the outcome is really unknown. The time frame would be unknown on this. So just the matter of fact of filing the lawsuit is going to throw a spanner in the gearwork there. And a Lordstown Motors legal win in a bad faith lawsuit would cancel the terms of the Fox agreement. So those draconian terms would be canceled. I believe, I'm not an attorney, but this is generally the outcome when bad faith is the adjudication or whatever. And that would probably lead to some type of forced settlement, okay? Or maybe they would agree to mediation, I don't know. But this is what I think, and of course, it's the worst possible outcome. But this is what I think would happen if the agreement is not reached with FOXCONN. And I think when DJ Dan, CEO Dan, said, we're negotiating in good faith and we're holding FOXCONN's feet to the fire on this, on good faith negotiations, I'm paraphrasing. I believe this is what he was talking about. In my opinion, not a lawyer, no inside information. If the agreement is reached with the agreement is reached, the endurance start of production would launch on time. Sales would be made. There's overwhelming demand, just generally. Okay, we can see by the numbers that Ford's putting out there and everywhere. The endurance would be the first or second BEV fleet pickup, and I think would be the best, and I think it probably would be reviewed by fleet managers anyway as being good. I think the stock price would go up definitely funding would be available. More funding would be available to boost production. I think the production numbers would go on. FOXCONN would be able to show the endurance as a proof of concept for their potential customers that they can take your plans for a vehicle and manufacture it successfully. And I think that's very important for FOXCONN. It would be a brand enhancement for both companies, okay? And I think it would be a very high quality product with FOXCONN producing it. It would enhance FOXCONN's brand in the electric battery vehicle market, and the backing and the quality of FOXCONN would polish the Lordstown brand as well. Again, FOXCONN would launch its build as a services business with the endurance, with a successful high quality business. They also, as part of this, within 24 months, according to the call, launched 2 MIH vehicles designed by Lordstown and likely to be built at Lordstown. So this not only would launch their contract manufacturing service, but also their MIH vehicle program, which is still in the conceptual stage, basically. And Lordstown says they can do that in 2 months. And you know what? FOXCONN is kidding themselves if that's not an advantage for them. And FOXCONN and Lordstown Motors would get revenue from U.S. and international sales and environmental credits for the sales, which would be sold at a discounted rate to General Motors at a discount of 25%, but still income. Also, with the agreement of the joint venture agreement, I think the advanced manufacturing grant and loan would come into place, and I think that would be $250 million to Lordstown, and $250 or $500 or whatever to FOXCONN. So this would turn them into quite a player. You got to understand, FOXCONN is financially the same size as Google, okay, or Facebook. This is not a small company. But anyway, this is what I see. Now, the 51% bull case. I have made a 51% bull case in the past. I called it a skinny bull case, okay? And it's got the slimmest possible positive skew of 1%, okay? That implies an extreme risk of catastrophic failure of 49%, okay? So, this is not for risk-adverse investors, okay? This is an extreme risk, okay? Extreme. All right? I'm going to explain why I think there's a 1% positive skew here, despite the risk. But we have to have the FOXCONN. These are all the things that have to happen. The FOXCONN joint venture deal has to go through. The CFIUS approval has to go through. The endurance start of production has to go through. There's a cash raise required by Lordstown Motors, and they have to keep specific cash balances. But I think if the joint venture deal goes through, it won't be a problem. But still, all these things have to happen. That's a lot of dominoes that have to fall in the same direction. Okay, so very high risk of failure, very high. Okay, now the 1%. This is the 1% that skews this to a skinny bull. And by the way, I think I'm not a financial advisor, but if you're not in this stock, you better evaluate the risk if you want to get into it at this point, okay? And if you hold this stock, you have to evaluate your own financial situation and see if you want to hold or sell, okay? And I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't think you have to be a financial advisor to see the risk here, okay? But I'm going to just explain what I think the 1% positive that puts it over the 49 is. This is a viable battery electric fleet pickup truck. It's going to have completed everything by the time this agreement's done, basically. This is massive, okay? I mean, Ford is the only one claiming to be close. And so it's going to be one of two in the entire world on the planet, okay? It's viable. It's homologated. It's certified. It's, you know, it's a thing. It's not a concept. They've made a couple hundred of them. They're out. I got videos of them on trucks leaving the plant, going out to customers for testing and so on. It's not, this is a real thing, okay? And I have one of two worldwide. You know, the Cybertruck isn't going to be a fleet vehicle. It's going to be a rental vehicle, but it's, no working fleet is going to use it. No gardener is going to use it, I don't believe. It's going to be too expensive anyway. It's going to be very expensive, in my opinion. The Silverado is 2 years away. The Ford, I think if they go, see, the thing is, they've got so much weight in there right now with lithium-ion batteries. If they go to the iron phosphate batteries, there's going to be even more weight. I mean, plus they have all kind of stumbles in their production. Plus their mileage isn't that good. Plus the complexity is high. But anyway, not going to get into that now. Viable BEV fleet pickup truck. Very, very, very big deal. Now we got the market timing, gas prices, macro events. Everything's positive. I said earlier that I think gas prices are going to double. That's $10, $12 a gallon. All these fleets are going to, can you imagine going from $10 a gallon to, $10 to charge the truck for 200 miles versus, a $200-$300 fill up of the gas tank? It's stupid simple. I mean, and demand, I think, because of this and other factors, is going to exceed supply even with the Ford start of production. Okay, and this is the other 1%. A plug-and-play corporate pivot for FOXCONN into BEVs. They have a concept for an MIH, and they want to do this. Pulling this all together, and as CEO Dan says, going all in, trying to make a big deal out of this. This is a big deal, man. This is going to be a corporate pivot. This is like Google pivoting into battery electric vehicles, and within within months, basically, putting out a successful battery electric vehicle. This is crazy. This is so. I mean, it's such a big deal if it happens, and I hope it does happen. I think it will happen, and also with the launching of the indoors, this is going to be the success of FOXCONN's first battery electric vehicle venture. Okay, now you got the Fisker pair coming too. I'm wishing the Fisker luck. I think it's interesting. I am not a fan of their design language. They say they have sales, so if it wasn't the Lordstown Endurance, it would be the Fisker pair. But you got to understand, the Fisker pair, no homologation, no testing. I mean, I don't believe it's ready. I don't think it's going to be ready for what? I don't know. 2 years? You got to tell me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But anyway, this is the 1%. This is the 1 + 1 = 5. Okay, this is going all in on this venture. Okay, and the conclusion. The FOXCONN LMC joint venture is required for any of this to happen. And what's required to happen for that to happen? All that's required is good faith. Okay? Now, other people are implying that this is a con. by FOXCONN to take over Lordstown Motors assets. I made the case earlier about this failing, and I think what that would lead to. And I think that's a push for good faith. The delay, we don't know. We don't know what the delay is over. No one's explained it. There hasn't been any indication of what it's over. We have no idea. Are they still negotiating in good faith? Dan says he is. But all that's really required is good faith negotiating on the part of FOXCONN for this to happen. Number one. Number two, this is also required. CFIUS approval is required. And I said, with the macro events, I think it's going to happen. And we got an April 30 drop dead date on this. Okay? So we don't have long to wait. And DJ Dan said, I'll be talking to you, I don't know, I forget the date, but anyway, he said, I'll be talking to you on April 30th, if not sooner. So, anyway, that's my take on it. This is MXUX. Here's a disclaimer. This is a business case study. I am not a financial advisor. The risk of loss in trading securities, options, futures, forex, and commodities can be substantial and are not suitable for all investors. You must consider all relevant risk factors, including your own personal financial situation before trading. You assume the risk of any and all financial investments you make. Always seek professional advice. And again, I'm not advising. I have a bullish 51% bull case on this from a case study perspective. Okay? You're going to have to make the decision if you want to make this investment. If you're holding this stock, you have to make the decision if you want to hold this stock. Okay? And if you want to buy this stock, you have to make that decision. But I'm just going to highlight this. In my opinion, and I am positive on this, the risk of catastrophic failure here is 49%. So if your risk profile isn't there, you shouldn't consider it. Okay? If you, this is risk. Okay? In my opinion, there could be a substantial upside. That is conjecture. That is just my opinion. But the downside risk is substantial. And I don't want to trivialize that. But here's my 1%. Anyway, this is MXUX. I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.